You know that story we're always told about the economy? The one that says it's basically stable, it's resilient, it always bounces back. Well, what if that story is leaving out the most important part? What if the real warning signs of the next big financial crisis are actually hiding in plain sight?
And really, that brings us to the fundamental question we're going to dig into today. Is our economy this stable, self-correcting machine? Like a ship that gets rocked by a storm but always rights itself? Or is it something way more volatile, where a nice long period of calm might actually be the quiet before the storm?
All right, so let's start with the conventional view. This is the reassuring story, the one that tells us, hey, don't worry too much.
So here we've got two completely different ways of looking at the world. On one side, you've got the mainstream view. It's all about balance, about equilibrium. Shocks happen, sure, a pandemic, a war, but they're just temporary bumps in the road. The system wobbles, but it's designed to find its way back to stability. But then you've got this other view from economist Steve Keen, and he says, no. He argues the system is fundamentally unstable. It's driven by an engine that's constantly building up risk, almost in secret. And that engine? It's the cycle of private debt and credit.
Right, that hidden engine. Let's talk about debt. Because according to Keen, this is the one factor that changes everything. It's the thing the reassuring story often just brushes over. We're talking about the money you and I borrow for houses, for businesses. The thing is, it doesn't just add to the economy, it amplifies it.
And this is where we get to the core idea, economic instability. Think about it like a feedback loop. When things are going great, banks are happy to lend, house prices go up, and we all feel pretty confident borrowing more, right? That credit is like rocket fuel for the boom. But, and this is a huge but, it's a double-edged sword. Because when things start to tighten, that same debt that felt so manageable suddenly becomes this crushing weight. Spending grinds to a halt, and the downward spiral can be just as fast and powerful as the boom was. It's like debt multiplies everything, the good and the bad.
And look, this is not just some abstract theory. A number like this, 3.85%, shows just how fast the system can send stress right into your living room. For so many people, a change in the cash rate isn't just a news headline they scroll past. It's a direct hit to the family budget. It's the mortgage payment that just went up. It's the rent that's suddenly harder to make. It's a perfect example of what's called a negative externality, basically a cost that gets pushed onto you by a system you don't really control.
So to really get a handle on how badly this don't worry, it's all stable thinking can go, we actually need to look back in time. Believe it or not, this isn't a new debate at all. Let's talk about a guy named Irving Fisher, an absolute giant of economics. But his story is a huge cautionary tale.
Okay, so Fisher, this guy was a legitimate genius. His work is pretty much the foundation for a lot of modern economics. And his core belief was that markets were efficient, that they always tended toward a natural, stable balance. So when he looked at the roaring stock market of the 1920s, his model told him, this is great, this is permanent prosperity. But here's the catch. His model had a massive blind spot. It completely missed the enormous mountain of debt, speculative debt, that was actually fueling the whole party. And when the music stopped and people couldn't pay that money back, well, the whole thing just came crashing down.
Just think about that quote for a second. It's infamous for a very good reason. He said this just days before the massive crash of 1929. It's the perfect example of what happens when you have this misplaced certainty. It's a brutal reminder that when your model is telling you everything's fine, when you're looking at the wrong numbers, you can be completely blind right at the moment of maximum danger.
Okay, so let's fast forward from the 1920s right to today, and let's talk about Australia. Because a lot of those same dynamics, those same vulnerabilities that Keen and others warned about, are playing out for households all across the country as we speak.
I mean, look at this. This isn't just a list of bullet points on a slide. This is the real-world squeeze that millions of people are feeling right now. You've got soaring house prices, all fueled by decades of easy credit. You've got huge levels of household debt. All of this makes the whole system incredibly fragile, incredibly sensitive. Every single time the interest rate moves, it sends a shockwave right through family budgets, trapping people between mortgage payments that are going up and living costs that just refuse to go down.
And you know it's serious when the official regulators start to get nervous. This isn't just some fringe theory anymore. When the financial watchdog, APRA, literally tells the banks, hey, you need to pull back on these super risky home loans, well, that's a massive signal. It's basically them admitting that the cracks in the system aren't just theoretical, they're real. They can see them, and frankly, they're worried.
So, of course, when people are feeling the squeeze, the political debate kicks in.
You'll hear both sides of politics talking about cost of living relief and housing. And that makes sense. But from Keen's point of view, there's a real danger here. These policies, while they're meant to help, can sometimes be a distraction from the deeper problem. Think about it. Things like grants for first home buyers might actually end up just pouring more fuel on the fire. They boost demand, which can push house prices even higher without ever touching that core issue of all the underlying debt.
So where does this leave us? What should you actually be looking for? Look, the point here isn't to give you a crystal ball to predict the next crash. It's about giving you a new set of glasses, a different way to look at the economy so you can see things a bit more clearly for yourself.
And it really comes down to this, choosing which lens you want to use when you look at the news. You've got the equilibrium lens. It just looks at the surface. Is the economy growing? Check. Is there a crisis right this second? No. Okay, everything's resilient. Then you've got the instability lens. This one looks deeper. It asks completely different questions, like how fast is private debt growing compared to the actual economy? Which families are under the most stress from their repayments? This lens sees a period of calm and doesn't just assume everything is safe. It wonders, is this the time when the real risks are building up, completely unnoticed?
So I'll just leave you with this. The next time you see a news story about the economy, just ask yourself, which lens am I using right now? Am I seeing that reassuring story? The one about a system that always bounces back? Or am I looking for those subtle signs of fragility that might be building up just under the surface? Because what you choose to see, well, that could make all the difference.